So he could have sort of like his own cosmetics or his own body care stuff as a sort of like a sideline to that. And yeah, you know, Paladin Perfumery.
A Paladin Perfumery. That trips the tongue nicely. I like that. There's potential there. Rich, welcome to A Slice of Dice. Very pleased to see you. So
Glad to be here. Thank you very much.
So, and you are in many ways the guinea pig. You are the first person that will be I'm doing an interview with in this format. So good luck. Should be fun. But hey, we're friends. It's fine. We go way back. We were just saying this in the first take because I realised that I wasn't recording your voice. Nearly
4 years, 4 or 5 years.
4 or 5 years, yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
How much time has passed? We've had a pandemic since then. We've had 2 monarchs in that time.
We've had 2 monarchs. God knows how many prime ministers. Yeah,
that's not even
numerous home secretaries.
Oh god, all of them, all of that bunch. Lovely. But as was discussed in the Discord chat beforehand, a nice little gimmick to lean into A Slice of Dice. We talked about bringing a slice with you. Now, I know you've just got out from work, so you haven't got your slice, but if you could bring any slice, what would you bring?
I would have brought a fresh cream custard slice, which, if you don't know what they are, I will describe.
Go for it.
They are about yay big, and they're sort of like layers, like sandwich type layers. So they've got a layer of fresh cream, custard, bit of jam in there, I think some sort of like wafer things. And you can't eat them in any dignified fashion. Whenever you eat them, the cream squirts out the edges and it goes all over and it goes all in your hands and all in your beard and you end up looking like a right idiot. It's great. So, yeah, I think that would definitely be... I mean, the posh people that eat them with a fork. Now, you can't eat a cream slice with a fork. You've got to use your hands. It's wrong. You know,
it's like
you just can't use a fork.
In my view, you can buy them in Greggs, right? They're like bricks with like yellow custard in the middle.
Get them in Greggs, Sainsbury's, Marks and Spencer's, everywhere, dude.
Sorry, yes, other bakeries are available, just in case anyone's watching.
Yes. Yeah, just in case they might get you for the advertising. Or
stop
like
advertising our competitor, all that. But yes, in my view, anywhere that if they sell them in a bakery, right, they can't be eaten with cutlery because you don't. Nothing you buy in Greggs, for instance, you're going to use anything but your hands for, are you? You're not going to use a knife and fork in Greggs.
Exactly.
That would be weird.
No.
None of that.
Well, it would be. It's just it's from up north. They don't use knife and forks up there, do they?
I mean, I can't.
It's probably going to upset some people, but
it's just me. I don't get. It's it happened. We were talking to a northerner yesterday, weren't we? So
Yes, exactly.
Not those northern folks are like.
Grew up north. Well, I spent time up there with the forces, so I know exactly what up north's like. No, it's all right. I jest. I'm joshing, but no, you know what I mean.
Yeah,
it's not. It's not knife and fork sort of like victuals.
No,
shall we say? It's not.
You
knife
don't need
and
the
fork
equipment.
No, but when they come down here, for some reason, people eat them with a fork, and it's like, nah.
No.
Not really my thing. If I'm going to eat it, I'm going to use my hands.
This will not do. I'm going to use my hands or
no,
nothing.
Use my hands or nothing.
How did you start off in tabletop role-playing games? What was your first experience?
Right, well, I started off, we were doing like the war gaming, like little figures and, reenacting the Battle of Waterloo and all that sort of stuff. And we used to get this is me and a couple of friends of mine, we used to get this magazine called Military Modelling, and they kept on advertising this game, all these games in there, Dungeons and Dragons. And actually, I've actually got it here. This was my first. This was my
props.
Oh, can you see that?
Yeah, Tunnels and Trolls.
This is not the original game because the original one was destroyed in a flood that I frequently tell about. But this, which was I think it's published about 1978. This one was published in 1980, so it's older than you. This book.
Yep, that is older.
But this was obviously, being sort of like, how old was I at the time? I was about 11 years old when I got into it. Bearing in mind, I'm 55 now, so it's a long time.
44 years.
11 years old. Yes. So I bought this, and it was from a company called Flying Buffalo. They're an American company, but they had an office in West Mids. It was £3.50. I still no £3. Yeah, £3.50. I think it was for the book, which I thought was an awful lot of money in those days. And you ordered it from Flying Buffalo, came through the post, and now I've got this book, and I'm like, well, what the hell do I do with this now? Didn't have a clue what I was doing with it. Like, what do you do with it? So you read the rules, didn't understand a word of it. So we all read the rules, didn't understand a word of it. And it wasn't like now where you've got things like YouTube, you've got all that sort of stuff. So if you don't know how to do something, you look on there and you watch other people doing it. Here, it was just like, don't know. So you play it the way that you think you play it,
right?
Which was probably completely wrong. So I ended up getting that one, and my friend Martin, he bought the Holmes edition of, which is the blue one of D&D, basic D&D, and we sort of like, because we didn't realise even that they were different games. We thought it was all sort of like one game. So we ended up with a sort of like a hybrid version of Tunnels and Trolls D&D plus what we thought we were doing, and it ended up as quite good fun actually. And it just developed. Yeah, and it just developed from there. Really, it was we went from there. We finally did get a grasp of what we were doing, and
excellent.
Finally, yeah, and the same as everything,
It's about 10 years later.
Yeah, about 10 years later, like, oh God, we know what we're doing. But no, and then all sort of like, through the 80s, we sort of like had a little gaming group every Saturday and Sunday. We'd go to the same guy's house, Martin, who was our DM, and play just whatever we felt like it. So we progressed onto obviously D&D, Advanced D&D First Edition, RuneQuest, which is another one, Traveller, oh God, what else? Gamma World, all sorts of different things. And it was just a case of we turn up, nothing was ever planned, and we just, what do we want to play today? Well, I fancy playing Traveller. Well, I don't want to play Traveller. Well, I want to play Traveller. And it was, and whoever we vote for whichever game we wanted to play for. And Martin was really good because he could just make up adventures off the cuff. I don't know how he ever did it, but he would just straight off the cuff, and we'd end up just playing with that. So yeah, and it sort of like it just went on all through the 80s until I went in the forces really, and it sort of died a death because obviously there's other things going on. A lot of servicemen play it, but I just never really got around to it. It just sort of like died a death through then. Got married, or met my wife, got married, left, kids
order,
came along.
Yeah.
yeah.
Got
Kids
married,
came along.
Yeah.
Then, like I said, kids came along. Started getting back into it probably in the late 90s. A couple of people who I worked with at the time were into it, and we started playing Warhammer Fantasy Role Playing. That was quite good. But then, as with happens, people move away, blah, 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 blah. So that died a death. And then got into it again probably about 5-6 years ago when I started. There was a club that used to run at the Ship down in Borough. Loads of people used to go there, and I went down there a couple of times, and it was pretty good, but it was all right. And then I met Simon online, met him at the Sultan, which was our hangout at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah, so that's how we met through Simon, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. And then, like I said, met yourself, met Matt, met everybody else, and we've just all stuck together, and we seem to be like a little core group of lunatics that play when we can, really.
That sounds like actually quite an apt description of our group, just a bunch of lunatics.
Well, it is. Well, I was going to say a little bunch of drunken lunatics most of the time, isn't it?
It was certainly yesterday, I will give you that.
It was a tad raucous. It was very raucous yesterday.
Raucous caucus. Yes.
We were, well, yeah, it was a tad rowdy. There was some rowdy behaviour.
Yeah, it wasn't just the D&D characters in the tavern getting rowdy, it was the players out of character.
It was just in general. Yeah, it was just in general, yeah.
So obviously there's quite a lot to unpack there of like your sort of journey, because I mean, journey through role-playing games, because you started, you said when you were 11 and now 55, so that is 4/5 of your life. You have been playing role-playing games and stuff, so a lot of material there. And the thing actually that I wanted to pick up on was, because obviously, life happens. You got married and had kids and the rest of it, and other things take priority over a hobby, which this is. But then you picked it up again in the 90s because you found out some colleagues, some people you were working with, were into it. How did that come about? Was it like, because in the 90s it wasn't that mainstream, right? So was it like you caught them like saying something and understood what they were referencing, or was there like they approached you in a cowl and under cover of darkness and asked you to join them in their basement? Like, what happened?
Well, the guy whose house we used to do, is a guy called Fred, and he was mad. He was as mad as a bag of frogs. When you talk about somebody being mad as a bag of frogs, he was mad. He was completely off his head. And he, this was when I worked at a prison. Like, I worked as a prison officer. And he would be talking about sort of like, oh yeah, I'm reenacting the Battle of Waterloo, tomorrow and sort of thing. And he'd have this room in his house, which was just like a massive sort of war game table. And he'd have all these troops of soldiers everywhere. And then we were talking about it one day, because I used to work with him a lot. And he was saying, he said, got this guy coming around, or it was another guy that works, he's coming around and he's playing this game called Warhammer. I said, yeah, I know it. He said, yeah, but it's not like the war game. He says, I know the Warhammer war game, one where you fight big armies. He said, but this one's different. I said, yeah, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. He said, how do you know that? I said, I've played it before back in the 80s when it first came out. He said, well, he's come around to play it. He says, you want to come around? I said, yeah, I'll come around. So I went round there, and it just developed from there, sort of thing. And like I said, I mean, it was quite apt because Fred played the Wolf Troll Slayer, who are a bit unhinged anyway. I don't know if you know the Warhammer. What you've had it yourself, and they're a little bit unhinged, which suited him down to the ground. And funnily enough, obviously my latest character in D&D has got an armor class of 26. Has never been below 50 hit points.
He says this a lot as well. The very blatant to Glendor. I have an armor class of 26. It was 28 at one point yesterday.
It was, thanks to Shield of Faith. But yeah, so he's got an armor class of 26, and he's got these massive flowing locks, hasn't he? And he's very proud of himself.
It was Revered something or other from Kingdom of Heaven was the character that you based his looks off of.
It's Martin Zokas is the guy who plays him. I mean, if you look at Kingdom of, I can't remember what his character's name, but he's not a very nice chap in it. But he's got these massive flowing locks and this perfect beard. He's like, hello. So yeah, I based it off him. And I've completely lost my train of thought now. It happens when you get my age. But anyway,
that's the beauty of these chats. So we just end up going down a rabbit hole, and we see where it goes. Going back to Warhammer, my character there, he was another one that was carried in armor, and you couldn't touch him. So it was quite a sort of like it's like I've gone back in time. And my D&D character is almost the same as this one, with his massive armor class and a bit of swagger because he's got a massive armor class.
No, he's got a massive arm class, and he's sort of like immaculate, and he's, he always rolls poorly on initiatives because he's too busy sort of like doing his hair and things like that, which obviously it's not based on me in real life because I have no hair whatsoever.
Would you say with your, because that's an interesting point that I think comes up quite a lot, right, is when you're playing a character or when you create a character, do you generally make a character that's kind of quite similar to yourself, or do you enjoy the escapism of, for instance, somebody who has a lot of hair, and see what that's like compared to somebody who has no hair, which is your daily experience? Like, what is it for you, would you say?
The thing is, I've always tried to I've tried to make characters that aren't like me, but I've always reverted to type. I've always reverted into one that just gets into fights all the time, which was sort of like me growing up. And so it's hard to, I've tried to do it. If I do like a comedy type case, like, I mean, I posted before my next character I want to based on Clinton Baptiste from Phoenix Nights, who's like the psychic medium.
Oh yeah, Kenny Craig. Yeah, we were talking about this. Yeah,
that sort of thing. Yeah, so he sort of like comes in, yeah, right, and he's reads people's minds and things and gets it completely wrong. So yeah, I mean, but it will probably be. It's like, I mean, for example, in one of Matt's games, I played a cleric, and he ended up being like Rambo. He was starting forward and leaping over crevices. Done the most uncleric-like behaviour in the world. But that's like I said, it just reverts to type. Really, I can't. I've tried to play other characters, and I just do it poorly. So I just tend to sort of revert to your barbarians, your fighters, and things like that. I mean, this is the most I've ever played a cleric, a paladin like. But then again, he's probably the most un-paladin-like paladin in the world. He's
Yes,
he just hasn't got a clue why he's a paladin, apart from the fact that he's sort of like the youngest son of a bunch of nobles, and that was all he could do. It was either that or join the priesthood, and he thought, I don't want to be a priest. At least if I'm a paladin, I can hit things.
I can sort of, again, referring to the character that you based his looks off of, like, in the it feels like that kind of, he was told to become a crusader because, you know, he's part of a noble line and he has all the money to be able to do that, but he doesn't have the belief there, or doesn't really understand
Oh God, no.
all this paladin, like how he does spells. Like, he doesn't really get, I get the impression that Siglendor, if he uses a spell, he doesn't really get magic very much other than smiting, because that does more damage. Like, I know how that works.
Yeah, basically. I mean, like I said, he's you know, he's got all these different spells, but he won't heal anybody. People go, "Oh, I need healing." He's like, "No, I'm not healing. I'm keeping that for myself."
Please, Siglendor, lay on hands. No.
Yeah. I'm bleeding out here. Don't care.
Stop your complaining.
You know, if his hair went out of place, he'd probably have to cast like cure light wounds on his hair or something, just to make his hair better.
Is that like who launches his own, like, hair product range? Like,
It's going to go there, yeah. I think that could. Well, because we've got, I mean, haven't we? We've got the spa as well that we found in one of the barrow mazes, didn't we? We were doing the barrow maze campaign at the moment, and we found, like, we call it Droggle's Spa, so we could have sort of like his own cosmetics or his own body care stuff as a sort of like a sideline to that. And you know,
nice little income on the side.
You know, yeah, I'm trying to think. You know, what is it they call it? There's something like polyphemerols or something, like, you know, we could have paladins polyphemerols, and it's all, you know, all this sort of paladin perfumery.
A paladin perfumery, that trips the tongue nicely. I like that. There's potential there.
There's definite potential there. Yeah, that's the plan. So that's definitely the plan.
So do you fear, with so you were talking about the character concept who's like the Phoenix Knight's psychic,
yeah,
but you worried that if you did play that character, that he would just end up sliding back into your kind of go-to, like, start fights, open doors, and just, you know, get on with it kind of character?
I think he'd probably end up dead.
How so?
Because I probably would try and revert a type, and he just wouldn't be the right character for it, and he'd just revert back. You know, he'd just end up going into a room and getting wiped out. The only one that really hasn't ended up like that was the one in Matt's game, Splinters, the assassin.
The assassin, yeah, the dwarf assassin.
But but he was a bit sort of like, he was a one-man killing machine on his own, though, wasn't he? Because he had such a good stealth and everything. He just used to basically, excuse my language, piss the rest of the party off, because he'd disappear, wouldn't he? You're in the middle of discussing something, and Paladin, Splinters has gone, and he's ended up killing loads of things, and then, or either that or falling down a hole or something.
And the thing is, because Splinters had such a good stealth, it meant that essentially he could disappear off, and nobody would notice he's gone until way after he's gone. Whereas, you know, if like a noisy barbarian or something goes, right, I'm going ahead, everyone's going to know it, everyone's going to see. So it works quite well that you can kind of advance the game along without having to have too much of an argument about it. And
he would just disappear, and like I said, the only time you knew he came back was that he had this magical cigar that never went out, and you just smell the cigar coming back.
Oh, yeah. Is there a character concept that you've always wanted to play but haven't? I'm guessing the Phoenix Knights one is kind of one of those, but was there anything aside from that?
But I don't really know what character class it'd be. I mean, I've read about it, and I quite fancy the warlock type of thing.
Well, playing one of the barrow maze, but obviously it's celestial.
You are, but
warlock,
he's not I'm talking more like a sort of like not an evil warlock, but, you know, a bit of a. But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it could be sort of like a warlock in a wheelchair or something like that. You know, just something a little bit different.
Well, like Professor X,
just thinking,
Phil.
Yeah, he could do something like that. Or I was thinking more of sort of like, again, going back to Phoenix Knights, Brian Potter, who's Peter Kay. But I do quite fancy it. Quite fancy that. I mean, I've played a couple of clerics, and they haven't been too bad. I think the last one got killed was a dwarf cleric who picked a fight with some really high level. Were you on that one? I'm pretty sure that one. He flew up the side of a tower and picked a fight with some high level elven mage. And
I missed that session, but that was Primeval Thorn. We were quite high level at that point. We were like level 17 or something, which is the highest level I've ever played. So it was interesting.
Yeah. Well, of course, because that was before he got killed. Old Grey Craw was in that, wasn't he? He was Sean Bean, you know. Come on then, you bastards.
You bastard, yeah. Classic. we have already touched on quite a few memorable moments from your the various games that we've been involved with together. But overall, in your 44 years of experience, what would you say was your most memorable moment in a TTRPG?
Basically, getting the entire male population of a town wiped out. I'll tell you the story.
Please tell me the story.
Yeah. And it actually led to this character's death, but I'll tell you that as we go along.
Spoilers.
My character was a fifth level character who was it wasn't an official character type. It was a barbarian, but you must have heard of White Dwarf that do all the Warhammer stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, many years ago, it was a Games Workshop thing that they used to do, but at the time, Games Workshop also was able to distribute D&D stuff, or TSR stuff, as it was then. So, White Dwarf, it wasn't just about Warhammer. You had sort of like Traveller in it, you had RuneQuest, you had D&D, you had all sorts of different role-playing games all in there, and it was a lot better magazine than it is now. I mean, I've probably still got a couple of old copies if you want to look at them. But
I have one copy of White Dwarf, but probably nowhere near like yours. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it was good. It was, and there's a lot of stuff in it, and they had scenarios in it, had new monsters in it, they had discussions about stuff. It was really good. And they did have a character type of the barbarian. Obviously because it was before it became official. Didn't become official until Unearthed Arcana for the first AD&D first edition. This was before then. I had this character and he was barbarian using these rules. And they had this thing, it was all sorts of stuff. They had this thing called first attack ferocity where you end up doing about 4 or 5 times as much damage in your first attack. It was great. But anyway, I killed the leader of this town, and it was quite a primitive sort of town, but I killed the leader of this town and became the leader of the town, as you do. And I decided that there was another town down the road that I didn't like, and I was going to take all the menfolk, rile them all up, and attack this other town. So I did. And managed to get all the menfolk massacred. I survived. I was the only survivor. Managed to get them all killed, and I was the only survivor. And then went back to the town, basically to drum up the women and children to do the same thing, to attack this town. Went back there, and they killed me. They basically all turned on me, and there was something like 200 women and children who I got killed by a pack of 200 women and children stabbing me with pointed sticks and stuff. And that was probably, and I still remember that, and that was probably that must have been about 1979, 1980, that thing.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's probably it's probably one of the few things that's actually stuck with me from my old games. Yeah, still managed to do it. And there was another one as well where I played a paladin, funnily enough. I didn't play paladin, but he decided he was going to, in the Greyhawk campaign, he was going to go and take the fight to them all on his own. There's a country in the old Greyhawk campaign called Ayers, the Kingdom of Ayers, which is ruled by Ayers, who's like one of the demons, pantheon type things in Greyhawk. And this paladin, he was only about 3rd level, decided he was going to go in there and kill him, and didn't. Went in there and got himself wiped out in about 2 minutes flat. So yeah, silly little things like that I've done.
That's amazing.
But yeah, it's all
especially
good fun.
Yeah, all in good fun, of course. And character death is a thing that I think it's an important, significant part of the game. In all of the RPGs that I've played, there has to be that risk of death. There has to be consequences for your actions. And as adventurers, if you're going to be fighting things, there's got to be a risk of dying. You wouldn't have the agency or the sort of, I guess, the immersion, if you like, in the game if there is no consequence, if there's no risk of death. So
and the thing is, in the older editions, it was a lot easier to die. I mean, you think about now, for your magic users, for example, first level magic users got 1d4 hit points. That's all you got.
That's like a commoner in 5e.
That's it. They get the crap kicked out of them by kobolds and things like that. It's great.
The proper glass cannon, they can do some really cool spells, but they can also die from being kicked quite hard.
Yeah. From getting sort of like a bad cold. That was it'll kill them sort of thing.
Could you actually get a cold in 1st edition? Like, you have influenza.
You do get diseases. Yeah, first edition. There were a big long list of diseases you could get and things like that. There was all sorts of stuff like that. It was quite. Me, I mean, like I said, I've told the story of the flood where I lost most of my stuff, and also I gave stuff away stupidly. But you do, when you get nagged by your wife that it's taking up room, So I gave a load of it away to people. Yes. And I'm kicking myself now because I'm building up my, I'm living vicariously through. Thankfully, I get paid for it now. I'll get paid money now, so I can actually go out and buy stuff. So, like I said, yeah, getting all this stuff again.
Excellent. On our Discord server, which only was devised today, as you know, is a random question chart. So at the moment we have 10 suggestions on there, and I'm going to get every guest to do at least one random question from the chart. Just because. So, do you have a D10 to hand by any chance?
I've got an old style D10 here, so I'm sort of like. Can you see that? It's very old. It's not coloured in.
It's not coloured in. Yes, it's just engraved. So
because you used to get a little wax crayon. Well, you used to get a little wax crayon with them, and you sort of rub the wax crayon over it, so that all the bits of the wax would go in and scrape it all off, and the numbers would still be in there, like on that one.
See the white one? Yeah.
Yeah, and these used to get these ones with your little box sets, so you'd basic or anything like that. In fact, I'll use that one because you can see the numbers on it. Sure. Or I can see the numbers. I won't be able to see the bloody numbers. Right, do you want me to roll?
I trust whatever you say. So, yes, if you can roll the D10, please, and let us know what you get.
7.
Which class do you think best represents you as a person?
Again, well, I mean, you know my background. I've been in the military. I've been a police officer. I've been a prison officer. I'm into me martial arts. I've done boxing, so I think we'd probably have to go down the fighter barbarian type thing. Probably not so much a barbarian. Yeah, definitely a fighter of some sort.
Maybe more of a pugilist, like a monk or something, that you can do extra damage with your punches, or I don't know. Not saying that necessarily you would be punching a lot. I suppose you probably wouldn't be.
No, because I mean, my fighting's more brawling type thing as opposed to sort of like it's more sort of like So. But yeah, I would definitely say probably along the lines of a fighter of some sort.
Nice.
Probably not a barbarian as much because I don't live in the middle of the wild and sort of like.
And you don't rage.
Or meat or anything. No, I'm too old to rage now, mate. It put me back out. So.
Absolutely fair.
Yeah, I'd probably say, now if I was to call myself something now, I would probably say sort of like one of the grizzled, veteran type fighters that sit there and, with a pipe and sort of like, when I was a lad, we used to live in holes, that sort of thing.
Have you played Skyrim before, Rich? I can't remember if we've talked about it.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So you're essentially saying that you would be like one of the guards from Skyrim, like, I used to
one
be
of
an
the city
adventurer
guards
like you until I took an arrow to the knee. That's you.
Did somebody steal your sweet roll? That sort of thing, yeah.
So
yeah, definitely. That's definitely me.
Human
Stop
fighter.
lollygagging.
I love that I love that of all of the potential things that we can be in D&D, still, or any other role-playing game, that still human fighter is the most popular. That is pretty much what you would class yourself as.
I am, yeah. I'm just it. I'm just, and that's it, sort of thing. I'm. Like I said, I'd like to be something different. I've got a couple of things on D&D Beyond. I've got a halfling bard that I've made called Rude Trevor.
Rude Trevor. You've talked to me about Rude Trevor, but it's been a while.
Rude Trevor, yeah, who's basically a bard who's crap. He can't play. He although he can play instruments, he plays them really badly. But when they throw things, he's just abusive to them and sort of like shoots a crossbow at them and things like that. So that's Rude Trevor.
The next next level of vicious mockery that's just him speaking.
Yeah, that sort of thing. And I've also got one who's an elf called David Dowie, who's like an elf, and he's an elven bard, and he'll sing like that, and Ziggy Stardust.
Is he the elf that fell to earth?
He is. Well, he's the elf that fell somewhere, but yeah, he's. But yes, that's the that's a couple of things that I've pondered using, So
Just
yeah, but
find the right
obviously,
game now, I
I've
guess.
yeah, but as you know, I mean, I've played dwarves as well. I've got my incredibly stupid dwarf who lived his infant life in a pig pen
Oh, fetid.
and
Fetid
smells
grunt.
fetid grunt, and he smells appallingly. But he's just really cheerful and does anything. He doesn't care how stupid it is, he'll do it. So he's got like an intelligence of 4, isn't he, or something? Really
Yeah,
stupid,
and that
but he's
also
great.
that's kind of against type for you, because although Fetid will go and open all the doors, he has to be told to do it. Like he doesn't really think for himself too much. So
No.
there is
Well,
definitely
he
room there.
Yeah, well, he desecrated a tomb, didn't he, of some god that's coming back to bite him now. He
Oh,
decided
the
he was
frog
going
god,
to relieve.
yeah, Barlas. I think
Yeah, he's going to relieve himself on it.
because he
so,
relieved himself on the altar.
Yeah, well, he didn't know what it was.
Perfect.
He just thought it was someone that he could use. So, yeah.
This looks like a peeing.
But
goat.
yes,
Yeah, fair enough.
but yeah, they all are similar types of things. They're all hooligans of some sort.
Your misspent youth coming back through your characters.
Yeah, it's just the stuff I didn't get caught for. So, yes.
Amazing. Well, as much as I'd like to delve more into that, I think this is a very good point to actually to cut things off for today, because that's great. So, thank you so much, Rich, for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
I found out a lot more about you, and not just your RPG stuff, but just a bit more about the history of Mr. Rich Windsor, which
you're gonna delete my number off the thing and never see him. God, I never
you'll
want
never see
block
me
him.
again. You know that our session on Sunday. I'm not gonna come.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna
Last time.
go wash my hair, so
I can't use that excuse.
Ooh. Anyway, thank you so much, Rich. And
No worries, mate.
Yeah, we'll speak again soon. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of A Slice and Dice. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We really do appreciate your support. And of course, if you'd like to get involved in any future interviews, whether that's being a guest yourself or suggesting some options for our random question chart, join us on our Discord server. There should be a link to that down below.